Hello and welcome to another structuring spreadsheet. Now, in this spreadsheet, we're going to address the issue of pre-commercial operation and cash flows from pre-commercial operation, whether they should be treated as a reduction in assets or a equity contribution. Accounting-wise, we kind of know how it normally works. I think it's normally going to be treated as a reduction in as an increase in equity, rather, as a dividend, and or a retained earning, really. Now, because that's, you produce revenues, get income, don't pay dividends, that's equity. From the standpoint of a bank, it doesn't really represent skin in the game. We're going to make an extreme scenario where we're going to put in hopefully a senior loan and sometime an equity bridge loan. And let's kind of see just how extreme we'll try to get. If we get really extreme, if the equity contribution all can come from pre-operating cash flows, and that we get our 10% equity or 20% equity or something from pre-operating cash flows, and then we get an equity bridge loan, so we're not really putting any money in during the construction period, and then when we make our final contribution with our equity bridge loan, when we finally put some equity in, is that equity really going to be coming from these pre-operational cash flows? I don't think I'm going to be able to get that extreme, but those are the kind of issues we're going to be dealing with in this analysis. So let's say we have 4 phases of our wind farm or solar project or something else. On each phase, if it's a wind farm, what does it? Takes about 18 months, okay? So I don't know. And maybe the whole wind farm takes 18 months, so maybe these take 10 months, okay? I don't know how much. Maybe they take less, and let's say they each have 100 of capacity. That's pretty boring. I could have just put that in. Make it a really big form. That's pretty big. And the cost, and this we'll put USD per KW is 2,000, okay? And this is when we're going to put the real big thing. Now, our model start, the whole model start date is, we'll just put 1/16. Maybe you'll be watching this video in 2030. What a bunch of bullshit. We'll start our first one in 2016, and shift control 3, of course, to get this one. But then we'll start this one. Let's start this one. Here's what I want to do. I don't want to start it in 1/1. So this is a US computer, I think. So that would be this one's January and this one's 1. So let's start it on the 10th of January. And of course, they don't have 101 days in January. Okay, and then let's start this one. I don't know, 180 days later. Okay, and this one 200 days later, and this one 150 days later. Okay, and then they become operational. Let's say they become operational 10 months later, so E date. Okay, this one, and we go to the construction ones. We put different dates in. Now let's say the project commercial operation date, let's say it's the EO month of the last operational turbine. Okay, Shift Control 3, and let's just add one day to it. So that's our defined project operational date. And then let's put a PPA life. And let's say that's 20 years or something. I should put units in for all this. Alright, Shift Control 1, and then our PPA end, okay, is the date, this, and times 12, okay, and then we'll put the PPA date. We're not going to be idiotic enough to believe somehow that these little differences in 1 or 2 months is going to really make a difference on the operational life of the turbine. So the end date will all be the same. So in terms of mechanics, this is a lot about just getting dates right. Shift Control 1. Okay, Shift Control C. All right, and so that's our construction kind of layout. Now what we'll do is say, instead of doing anything fancy, let's say that we make our net cash flow per kW per month, let's say. Could have almost put it per day. Let's see, we have a wind farm. We need about 150 per year, so a little more than 110. I don't know, let's make it 15, okay, per kW. We'll put a little growth rate in the cash flow. And then we're going to treat either the operating cash flow as equity or debt, and of course we can put not true, and we can put in our little spinner box thing to understand. This is going to be it sounds like a nothing issue, but this issue about whether I tried to put the issues there, didn't I? About whether it's debt or equity during the construction period, and I hope about the equity bridge loan terms. So I'm going to put some equity bridge loans here, and I'm also going to, this is this whole business of skin in the game, and I'm going to try to find some non-confidential discussion of an equity bridge loan, or just hide some, just disguise some of the other stuff. Okay, so there we have that. And, I think what we should do is really begin with our master timeline. So let's put our start date. Okay, now I don't even know if we'll really need a start date. I think I'm going to be lazy. To be lazy, I'm going to make this a monthly model. It sounds, oh, monthly model, you're so fancy, but it's really a lazy way to do things. What was that thing? I wonder what that is. Returns a URL encoded string. Whatever that is. Oh. Can somebody tell me this stuff, please? And then we'll go, oops. How about this? Let's do our old period here. Let me see. We better do how many months? If we have 25 years. 25 times 12 is 300 months, and we better have a construction period, so let's make it 500 months. Alt-EIS. Alt-EIS. And, oh, come on, I did it too many. 500, and we're here. And now we can press Shift-Control-R, and we just went to that. It didn't work on the top one. Shit. If I put a thing here, I promised not to swear, I thought, on this one. No, I didn't. I didn't promise. Okay, so that's our master timeline. Now, the way to really start this is we're going to start our phase 1 and put our phase 2 projects in, and if we have these things where we start in the middle of the period. Now I'm going to put the end date. I think we do need the end date. The reason we need the end date is so we can put EO month and put a 0. I think that's the easiest way to do that. Shift-Control-R. Hell. Control spacebar. And let's make this wide enough so we can get a date shown up properly. Okay. And let's do our construction analysis. And then we'll put the first thing to do is to put our different phases in. Okay, I suppose I could have done this and, you know, linked it. And let's put the percent of time, percent of construction. You know, so, and I think for the S-curve on the construction, what we'll do is we'll just take this number divided by the, we'll divide it by our percentages, I think. We'll figure it out, I hope, and allocate this total construction cost, which will be our 100 megawatts times 2,000 times, you know, you have to multiply by 1,000 divided by 1,000, which leaves you the same thing, I think. Okay, and then we, so let's put the start and of course, this is why you really do this. This is one of the only things I do with all WFF. That's to get the freeze panes. I should do that now, and then we're going to have to do something eventually, something kind of similar when we do the when we make the what was I going to say, when we make the operational. So that now what I did is, I think, I'm not absolutely sure, but I think I already copied something into this one, and I might not have. Okay, well, good, I didn't. Well, let's see if I didn't. If I screw up, sorry about that. So what you want to do is go to your, go to the, you know, I need to put this function library in a better place on the website, because I think it's a lot more clear on the courses. Okay. How are you? How are you? Okay, excuse me, I've had about a 10-hour interruption. Now what we put is here, we put the start dates and the end dates of the construction. And so for 10th of January, we'd like to be, you know, whatever, 60% of January, and we'd like to go just to November 10th of 2016. And we'd like it to say, it's almost like a true-false, but we'd like to say what percentage of time are we in service, and these are all 100% in construction, and that what percentage of time are we not. So to do that, you can go, and I am going to make sure these are kind of more clearly in on the website. But if you collected the Google Drive, then you could go to the function library, and in the function library you find this percentage of time function. And then I guess one way to do it is just copy that and, you need to have a macro. Now, oops. I don't think, if you do this, let's just make sure that worked. So if we go to, excuse me, I'm just, it's not a funny thing. Okay, so it did work. Okay, and then we can just copy it. Now, there's an issue. If you start at the beginning of the day or the end of the day, you'll get a slightly different number. And when I made this program, I didn't really think through that quite enough. I think I start at the end of the day. So if we put 31st of January, it should be 0, but not actually sure. Now, so you then put percent of time. Okay, and remember what you press is Shift F3. This is the start and end date are here. The start of operation, you better press the F4 to get just to the E. And the end of operation, you push the F4 key like this. And then you push the start date. And this time you press the, F4. And the end date, F4, like that. And then it gives you the number. So I was wrong. It's 70% of the time we're in here. Shift Control P. Shift Control R. And then we get 100%. This is like a true. And then in the last time, at the end, we get 30% exactly. I assume that's, and then we can Control D, Shift Control R, and then we get different percentage of times depending when we started. Okay, and end dates. Okay, and the final one is here. So that is really the key to getting all this. I guess you could do it with a true and false, but it's kind of a fancier version of the true and the false. Now, let's put the construction expenditures. Now, I think, and we'll do this by the different phases. Okay, 1, 2, 3, okay. And for the different phases, we put a little table, and we had, I think I'm going to put a different amount of capacity. Let's put this as 120, 130, and 80, and this is 2,100. Now 1900, 2100, maybe 210. Maybe the first one has some startup costs in it. 1950. This is smaller. We'll leave it as 2,000. Okay. Now, so we can put our different constructions. This is the megawatts. I'm afraid to add a line, but this is dollar per kW. And we put this in. Okay, and now if we wanted to get the percentage of construction, I would love it if we didn't have these dates in here. So what we'll have to do is take this one times this one. That's the total. And let's just put it in a simple pro rata thing. So how about F4 just on the E times F4 on the E times the 70%. Now, I guess we don't need an F4 on that. Divided by the sum. And this is why I'd love to press the shift spacebar, but we'll have to press this one and start here. Shift control right. And then press the F4. It did it for us, good. Shift Control R, okay. So we spend this amount, and then we spend a little less at the end. And then we can do the same thing, Shift Control R. Okay, so we have different expenditures that they're flat, but you know, they depend on the date, okay? And now we put the in-service percentage operating. Okay, and operating spent, and we're going to see how much money we get during the construction period. Okay, so let's go down here and do our same thing. Now, this time our start and we do the kind of same thing. I'm debating whether this should be starting. Let's start in the next day. Okay. And then we put the end. Now, this is not the same as the start and end date. Okay, because we produce some cash flows before the construction period. So we'll put okay, but the first thing we do is put percentage of time. Sorry about that, I didn't finish a sentence. But we're going to put the kind of the split, the cash flows we receive between the cash flows during the operation period and the cash flows during the construction period. Okay, so we put the start of the operation. This is, I hope you don't mind that we're repeating this, but I think it's worth it. And then we put this and we press the F4 until we get that one. We put the start date. F4, and then we put the end date. Okay, and I thank somebody in Germany for showing me this. I wish I could remember his name. He was a wonderful man who took a class of mine. And now, you know, oops, shit. Okay. What happened? Ah. Okay, sorry, I'm gonna have to do it one more time. Let me turn it off. You don't need to see that. Okay, so see the end date up here and then the begin date. I took the +1 out of it. And if we go to this one, we have a end date here and complete. So it kind of just matches. That's what I kept on struggling about before. And this 23 equals the 67. And then we have this. Now, let's see what we have next. So the next thing I put is the PPA life, but I hope I put some operating cash flow. Why is this Shift Control C? What just happened? Okay, I don't know why that wasn't. So this is that, and this should be the annual growth rate, just so we are very clear about this. So we're going to make a simple kind of net cash flow per month, and we get that whether we're in the operating period or not. And I should put the start date for the inflation, but we'll just assume that it's. So we'll put inflation rate. Okay, and that we can just get our number. And this will be, since it's monthly, it will be 1 plus the annual rate raised to the 1 divided by 12 minus 1. Don't yell at me because I put 12 in there. Don't be that ridiculous to think that there are months in the year that don't have 12, years that don't have 12 months. People worry about this kind of thing instead of worrying about some of the theoretical issues with why did that go like this? Okay, so then we have our okay, so okay, that's our, and then let's put our net revenues. We could do, of course, an extremely sophisticated kind of analysis of that. And we said, well, we're going to get 15 per kilowatt month. Maybe that's way, way too high. Okay? And then let's press that and just inflate that. Okay, now we'll put revenues received, net. Oh, how about before we that? How about net capacity producing revenues? And we can put all of our, okay. And we can put back our kilowatts. Okay. And we can press this F4 a few times, excuse me, the operating percentage. Okay. And Here's our revenue, our capacity. Of course, I should always put the units, but you know, much better than I've been doing in this exercise. Now, we're going to split these revenues between how much let's put revenues, okay, or net revenue. Now, after we put this net revenue in, we're going to split it between the revenue you earn pre-COD and after COD. And the pre-COD revenue is really the entire subject of this analysis and how to treat that for balance sheet purposes. So right now we can just take our capacity and multiply it by the, press the, okay, Shift Control 1, Control D, Control R. So we get the various different revenues, okay? And I suppose if you want to put the total here, okay, we can press. If you want to, let's just do it a kind of different way. Shift Control right arrow Alt equal. Okay, it shouldn't take that long, but there's our total revenues. Okay, now let's put revenue pre-commercial cash flow. Now I'm not putting taxes into this, and then we can put post-commercial cash flow. Okay. Actually, why don't we, before we do this, we should have just, we can put our total capex. And then we can compute our operating, Shift Control right arrow Alt equal. We can then put our pre-tax cash flow. Okay, took a little what? Well, This seems to be slowing things down now. That shouldn't. I can't imagine why that function's slowing it down a little bit. I don't think that's the problem. Okay, now let's put pre-tax project cash flow, which is just the this revenues minus the, okay, this one. Now, there is absolutely no reason now, I think equal IRR. Why you'd use the XIRR here, I have no idea. Maybe because you don't like to do that. Shift Control P. So then our annual IR is this plus 1 raised to the 12th minus 1. So that's 9%. A little bit high. So perhaps we'll make this 113. How's that? Let's try that. Okay. We'll maybe use this. Still a little high. Now let's go to the top. And I think, I haven't, of course, done this before. Let's put the project project commercial operation date. So So why does this say construction? I don't know why that says. So this is the pre-COD, and then let's put post COD. Okay, so pre-COD we can supposed to start with the start dates and go to the just before the project operation, and this we can start with the project go to the project operation and just go to the end of it. And then we can use our AND function. And always you go to the beginning. I've said this way too much. That's got to be greater than or equal, and of course I should greater than this F4, and we got this is less than 4. Okay, and then we can Control D. Okay, I hope. Shift Control T, Shift Control F. Okay, so that's when we switch, and we're going to call all the let's put this Alt F, Shift Alt WFF. Okay, and then. So the pre-commercial operation. Now, I just care about the revenues right now. So we're going to multiply this by this. Okay. By the pre-commercial operation. We take this same total and multiply this by the post COD. Okay, and now when we can kind of start the issue now. Okay, and the issue is when we make our sources and uses of funds. Okay, the construction expenditures, there's no issue with that. That's just going to be, and we'll make a sum here. And I hope we can, because we did it down here, we can just take a sum. We didn't put any little things, okay? And then we can, option 1, we can put either less pre-commercial cash flow, and we can put equals sum, and that's this one. Okay, which, okay, what's the percentage here? Okay, it's only 6%, but let's let's make it more than 6%. Okay, so how about I'm going to make this plus 200. Okay. That probably didn't change it enough. Yeah, I don't want to get too crazy. Probably didn't change it hardly at all, okay? And then you could call this net. Now, you could also, and then you could Now we'll have to put some IDC, which somebody in my South Africa course said that stands for I don't care. I think it stands for interest during construction too. And then we can put fees. And then we can even put a DSRA. I don't know how much time of yours I want to waste on this. And then we can put total. Now, that's not the way it normally would be done. Then we can put up here, we could, for the uses, we could put the sources, we could put debt and then equity. And then before we put equity, we could put less, we could put pre-commercial cash flows. Now, oh good, that did go up to 7%. Now let's say we have about a 90% leverage, or 80%. How about 80% leverage? Now if we have 80% leverage, that means that if we count the 7% as debt, equity, that means we really only have to put in, whatever, 13 or 12% equity. Now, if it's 100% equity like we have now, so let's put this as the same thing. We can put sum of this one, okay? And then we have this one and the equity. Let's make our total alt equal. Didn't work. Shit. Okay. I hope this would work. And our equity is the total minus the debt minus this. So I hope you see that, depending on how we, in this case we had to put in all equity, well, it's kind of stupid. We'll first, we put a little true. So if it's equity, so this is as a cost reduction. So if that's true, and why don't we put a little thing here for the true. So this is the cost reduction, and this is if we classify it all as equity. Okay. Now, I know. This, the accountant's official thing is to classify it all as equity, but I'm just trying to illustrate the issue to you, okay? And in fact, let's make it a little more dramatic. Let's make this first bunch of turbines 300, okay? Takes a little while apparently to calculate. For some reason it didn't. So we have 10%. That's 10% of our cash flow is our pre-commercial cash flow. So we can just multiply this by the true. Okay, and whoops, I put it in the wrong place. And we can multiply this one by the false. Okay, and so, and maybe, perhaps, I hope, did I put, yeah, I put a nice little thing. Okay, so probably put it with this one. Doesn't really matter, does it? Okay, so we're studying the effect of this being either as a reduction in assets or an increase in equity. How does that pre-operational cash flow? And remember, the way a bank might say it is they want skin in the game. They want this equity to be real cash. When we compute this one, when we use it this one, we say, oh, okay. Let's just see, why did that make a difference? Just a minute. This should have been a minus, so that was kind of stupid. This minus that plus this, plus this, plus that. Okay, so far, it really doesn't make any difference at all. Total amount of equity stays the same. Okay, but now let's put some debt in our analysis. Okay, and let's say that our senior loan will put a debt percent, and I'm going to make it pretty high. Let's make it 85% to make it interesting. And then we'll make when we fund the construction with debt, we'll just make it pro rata. And let's not worry a whole lot about the repayment. So we'll make this in years. How about we'll make it, what was our PPA life? It was 20. Let's make this 17 years. Oh, that's a good debt. And we'll just make the repayment type we'll make it just a level repayment, which should be some sort of fancier input. And then we're going to just make a simple interest rate. We're not going to get fancy. Annual interest rate, let's say, is 4%. Okay. 4.5%. That's because we locked in. The reason I'm doing that is our equity bridge loan might have some interest rates that are actually lower because we don't need to lock it in for all this long period of time. So that might actually help us a lot. So we're going to kind of see what happens if we do this with an equity bridge loan and without, and I'm going to do it with no taxes for now. Okay, so that's what we have. So that now what we can do is we can say, well, the debt, now I'm dreading a circular reference. I might just leave this. I might just, for now, at least for the video, I think I'm just going to leave the circular reference and the interest during construction out for just a minute. Okay, so we'll kind of just get the ideas here first, and then I'll perhaps add it here later and start complaining. Okay, so now if we have the debt at 80% of the asset cost, and now we put in 75% equity, so we can put a total here. Okay. And our total is this divided by Shift Control P. And so now our equity is actually only 5%. If we click this off, look, the equity is 173. It changed dramatically, the equity. Now, if we went even higher with our pre-operational cash flows, or if we put our loan percent to be 90%, we could get almost no equity, no real money in the project, none of our own money. We have no risk, we have no skin in the game. That's what the bank should be complaining about. If we instead call this a reduction in the value of the asset on the other side of the balance sheet, then we have to put a whole bunch of skin in the game, and we have a dramatic different effect. That's what I'm trying to demonstrate with this whole subtle little issue. Okay, so it's not only all the percentage of time and all that function, it's really the real thing is the equity. Now, I think it's pretty obvious what's going to happen if it really helps to call it equity. And you can argue really violently that it should be called equity because it's dividends that you would get. But then you have the dilemma that you haven't put any real money into the project. So what's the right answer? I don't know. If I'm a banker, I say you really have to put some real money into the project. I'm saying this. If you're the developer, you say, no, no, no. That's what I do. And if we have grants, we could do the same kind of thing. Government grants. Government grants you normally put as, I think, a reduction in the assets, but if you call it equity, it really changes the whole situation. And then we can have our debt schedule. On that, we put a opening balance, and we add the draws. Oh shit! And then we subtract the repayments. I think I'm just being slow right now. Because, we should have, before we did this, put the, well, I guess we could put the drawdowns here. The drawdowns we're going to just, let's do the percentage of construction. So we're going to make it kind of a simple pro rata thing without any fancy, and then debt draws. Okay, so again, if it's 85% of the total cost, we get a different number. We're going to spread this out, and our percentage of construction is the total construction somewhere divided by the sum of it. Okay, that's a good one, but we didn't put any Shift Control P. I know why it's going so slow. It has nothing to do with that percentage of time. It's just because I got 500 columns. Okay, F4 times the rate. Okay, and then our debt schedule. Let's put our opening balance equal to the closing balance, and put the draws in here, and then the repayments are the total amount of the debt we have, and we do this over so we've got our pro rata thing here. We got a repayment type 17 years times 12. I suppose we need a repayment period if we're going to make and to do that, let's just take the pre-COD plus the last one. So we don't have anything until later on, and the repayments are going to be, if it's the post-COD, might have to do a little bit better than that. We need a repayment switch. Shit. Okay. Let's put the over the repayment years. Let's put e-date and get the end of the repayment, which is the COD, and then we put the 17 times 12. Okay. Control 3, excuse me. Okay, so let's put a switch just below here. Okay, now I'm wondering out loud, if it's actually worth it to kind of delay the repayment and book all these things as pre-commercial cash flows. Okay, if you can do that, you can play a trick that I never thought you really could do. And that trick is to, reduce the amount of equity and actually delay the, yeah, you're delaying the repayment. Well, I guess that's the bankers wouldn't like that because they want to get repaid earlier, of course, but and then we have a repayment period. Okay, and we can, I think if we are lazy, we can just copy this to here. We'll have to because it's conditional formatting, I guess. And so we finally start repaying it here. And we better be finished at about period 70, I think. What was that? Was that something like... No, it wasn't. It was something else. Oh, we're not anywhere near it. Okay, enough. I'm going to hope that's right. So, where were we? The repayments are... And let's put our interest rate. And that interest rate is just an annual number. Well, let's take the annual number. And divide that by 12. Okay. And so, okay. Closing balance is why I'm doing it now. I don't know. Okay. And this is PPMT. Let's do this. If we have a repayment switch, then PPMT, and we take the rate on the debt. Now F4, take the periods down. We press the F4. Nope. Sorry. We take the period of the debt, and then we take the number of periods F4, and then we put a minus on the debt. And press the F4. Okay, and we want to, I suppose we can multiply by 1 to get it to be 0. Okay, and Shift Control R, and let's see, we go across, and then we're repaying the debt, hopefully, and it's going very slowly, and this is a very bad thing to do, very, 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 very bad, because you don't really pay the debt off monthly. So you'd look like you did some fancy, stupid monthly model, and really what you did is mess things up. But I'm just doing that, again, to be lazy. So we finally pay off the debt. Here, it worked okay. All right, and we have level repayment. I suppose we had an inflated rate, but then we can put our cash, waterfall. We can put our operating cash flow. And, you know, we should have, up here, of course, put our, now, what am I going to do with the interest during construction? I'm going to leave it out for now, so we put the equity funding, which is, this is really bad to ignore the interest during construction for now, but I just want to get that kind of idea here, of course, right, which it should be dramatic. Okay, so this is the amount of equity we put in, and our if we look at our, see, and I did that wrong. So the equity funding is the, where's, if, see, this is, I'm skipping too many steps, and excuse me for that. Total funding needs, okay, and then we get the construction. Oops, let's put construction, and then we can put less than the what did we call it? The pre-operating cash flow, and we can put our net funding needs. add the IDC. Okay. I probably should be putting this on a manual calculation. Add the fees and add the DSRA, and then we put a total. Okay, and the construction is just up here, and our pre-operational cash flows are the down here. We did this somewhere. I remember it. Here was the pre-operational cash flows. So we don't have any IDC or DSRA yet. So we put it this minus this plus this plus the fees plus the DSRA account. Okay. Now shift control. Oops. Shift control R. Okay. And then we can, our equity funding in this case should be our this one minus, but before we do this, let's also, we can put pre-operational cash flows down here. And why don't we do what we did before, which is just simply to put our true and false here. So if this is false, we're not going to reduce our funding needs by this, so we can multiply by this number. Okay, and if this is, I know we could have just put it 1 minus the true, but if it's true, we'll get our pre-operational cash flows from here, and we'll multiply those by the true. Okay, and we'll press Shift Control R, and then we take this one. Equity is total minus this minus the pre-operational cash flows. Okay, and whatever, we can kind of evaluate the difference in the accounting. Oh, we have negative. We actually have negative equity contributions here. Positive, negative. I'm kind of doubting the bank would really let you do that, but we'll go with that. That may be too extreme. So instead of putting, let's just put a debt of 80%. Okay, and then we can. And what this shows me, I think, is if you have an option to lump the projects into two different projects, and you can call the first project the construction period. You don't have separate really commercial operation dates. You kind of have one loan associated wrapped around both the projects. You know, maybe you can play this game. I kind of doubt it, but it does illustrate some issues. So then we have post-operational cash flow, and we can put less the interest and less the debt, the debt repayments. And you know, for now, since we didn't put any interest during construction in here, and then no, I don't. Should I do that? And then we have dividends. Okay, and then we can get our equity cash flow and our equity IRR. I think I'm going to do it like this. I don't think it's a big deal. I'm almost thinking we're reversing this thing. Now we put the interest rate, and I didn't put the interest expense. Okay, and our interest expense is our interest rate multiplied by the opening balance. Shift Control 1, Shift Control R, So I'm going to take away the total interest, even the interest during construction, and the debt repayment doesn't start till here, and the dividends are this minus this minus this. So it's not really correct, obviously. And equity cash flow, we put a minus on the amount of equity we contribute up here, plus the dividends we get. And I'm going to have negative dividends for the whatever, you know. So we press Shift Control R, and then we can get our equity IRR. And please, again, don't think the XIRR is better than the regular IRR. What a ridiculous thing that is. Okay, Shift Control, and then equal this 1 plus this raised to the 12th power minus 1. Okay, so let's see the effect of this. Watch it not have an effect. And the question is, should I even post this video on the thing? Okay. And I forgot which way this was. Yes, it had a big effect. Well, not dramatic effect, but pretty big. And if we clicked this on the true, this was pre-commercial operation cash flow as equity. Okay. Why? Pre-CODCF as equity. Okay, did that work? Yes. Okay. So let's put a little bit of a different debt gearing in here. Let's make it 85% gearing. That means we put even less equity in here. And if it's equity, we have this 14% IRR. If it's not equity, we have this one. And I think this does demonstrate the point. It does demonstrate the point that how you classify something simple and meaningless as this, it seems to be not very exciting an issue. How you classify that makes a pretty big difference. And this, you know, again, I'm repeating myself for the umpteenth time, but you're not putting skin in the game, putting a lot less skin in the game in here. So this equity you call as equity, well, is it really equity? That's it. From an accounting standpoint, it surely is. It's income that you didn't take out as dividends. And I don't know, I would love to hear some arguments about this. But nobody will ever send me an email. Nobody will probably ever even watch this video anyway. Okay, it's for me an interesting issue though. And I'm going to stop the video. And whoops, why did that not work? Well, let me stop it anyway. And I'm going to add the, I'm already at an hour.